AITA for embarrassing my wife by taking our son from her in front of her family? So the title sounds a little weird. So I, 30M, have a 5-year-old with my wife of 6 years, Chloe, 28F. Never had a big issue between us. Truly is my best friend and someone until recently I trusted fully. So I do not have a relationship with my mom. And I haven't since I was 15. Without going into all the details, my mom broke up the family to marry some dude. I told her when I was 15 that if she chose this road then there wouldn't be coming back. She was making a selfish decision and needed to think about it. She chose to stay with the dude and move in with him. I haven't seen her since. I told her the last time we spoke, my 18th birthday, that my kid will never know her and that is my wish. She broke up with this dude a few years ago and tried getting in contact with me. When I blocked her, she tried my wife, who I informed of the situation, and she agreed that she would never contact my mom, which was hard for my wife to accept because she doesn't have her mom anymore. My wife was pushy at first about me opening up to reconciling. But when she learned I wasn't budging, she learned to accept it. So this weekend I'm fixing the Ring doorbell we have, and finally learned how to see the old footage. That is when I see my mom on the camera. I go back months and see her more and more. During work she was stopping by for hours at a time. My wife on camera letting her in. I texted my wife asking why she let my mom see our son. No response. Hours go by. Nothing back. I knew they were at a family day thing. So I printed pics of the videos, wrote a letter that stated how upset I was and laid out my plans to go stay at my dad's with our son, till I knew I could trust her again. Then I drove to the party, walked into the backyard, said hello to everyone. I made sure nobody could tell I was mad, but I grabbed my son, walked up to my wife, handed her the letter, told her to check her phone and read the letter privately. I told my son we had to leave, quietly packed up his stuff and headed to the car. My wife read the letter in this time and ran over to me, asking if we could talk. I said it wasn't the time or place, that she could call once I got to my dad's. She then caused a scene crying and begging to talk. I didn't want a scene, so I left. I got to my dad's and then we talked. She is saying I'm in awe for where I did this. I said she is the one who broke down in front of everyone. I didn't cause a scene. She did. I tried making it as low-key as possible. She chose to not answer her phone. She chose to read the letter in front of everyone when I said not to. And she is the one who cried and begged for a ride home. So she embarrassed herself with her actions. I've been staying at my dad's since Saturday and we plan on coming home sometime this weekend. But I don't think I need to apologize. But am still being called AITA? NTA. That is a very deep betrayal. As someone who was estranged from my father for some time, this would be utterly devastating and I am so sorry. I hope she thinks very deeply about what she's done and does everything in her power to regain your trust. AITA. You told her you didn't want your mom in your son's life and she went behind your back. As the old saying goes, you made your bed, now you have to lie in it. NTA. She broke your trust repeatedly behind your back. That's not okay. Whether she agrees or not, it's your decision to make. But you more after reading your comments. She'd be better off divorcing you. You do realize that just because you are mad at your wife you can't strip her of her parental rights? She has the right to be alone with her child. You do not have the right to deny that. Stop bringing your child in the middle of a spat between your wife. Writing a letter in hand, delivering it to your wife at party while running away with your son was unnecessary. I hope you allowed her access to him for the week you've been gone. It's wrong that your wife went behind your back and crosses this boundary. Hopefully you do not hold as strong of grudges as an adult. Also, just read your comments about forcing your wife to have her location at all times and being allowed to look at her phone whenever. Dude, if you're going to be this controlling, then just divorce. You did not try to make it as low-key as possible. You initiated a separation in your marriage at a family party. Whether or not you did that by a letter quietly, that was never going to be low-key. You're not the asshole for having a boundary that you didn't want your mother involved with your children. It's a fine boundary when you don't have a relationship. That said, nothing you've said suggests that your mother is a danger to children, so if you do divorce, the likelihood is that if your wife wants to see your mother with your son, that's gonna be something you will have to live with as a choice she makes. Something to think about. Therapy to see if this is something you can work through as a couple, and if not, how to co-parenting effectively for your son. YTA. I'm blown away by all the NTA responses. A conversation needed to be had like grown-ups. You don't get to let out all your feelings in a letter without giving her the opportunity to react or defend herself. You are 100% responsible for the scene at the party, and pushing that blame onto your wife shows me that you don't respect her at all. Her emotions are somehow beneath you because you're able to not act mad or upset. She went behind your back, and I understand the betrayal you feel, but the way you handled it is completely unacceptable. Therapy if you want to save your marriage. Divorce if you don't, but your wife is a person who, I assume, you care about. Act like it. Edit to change my vote from ESH to YTA. I think UP makes it habit of all or nothing responses to situations, and THR more I think about it, the angrier I get. ESH, but from your comments, you sound terrifyingly abusive. Is your mom a bad person? Like, is she violent, neglectful, or narcissistic? If your mom choosing her own happiness is the only reason you don't speak to her, I think you need individual therapy as well. My dad doesn't speak to my nana, hasn't for about 10 years. I don't know why, but he's okay with us all having a relationship with her as long as he's not involved. She's a good person but made a mistake that broke her bond with my dad, but as my dad says, their issues are not my issues, and I shouldn't miss out on having a loving family member in my life just because they no longer get along. If your mom is a bad person, then this is the ultimate betrayal and your wife is deaf's the ah. But if your mom's only mistake is daring to leave an unhappy marriage, then sorry, but your wife shouldn't have gone behind your back. But if that's your one and only reason, I can see why she decided that your son deserved to know his grandma. ETA. It is absolutely not okay that his wife went behind his back. I'm not saying that, I'm only saying I can understand her reasoning if the only reason he's NC with his mom is because she left his dad. Why should their child miss out on a loving grandparent because he can't move past his mom leaving his dad 15 years later? His wife 100% should have discussed this with him before going full speed ahead behind his back. Info. I don't really get the whole her sharing her location bit. If you don't know where your mom works or lives, how would it help to know where your wife is? Unless you're planning to start just showing up everywhere she goes, which I am not recommending. Also, why were you rewatching the footage? Did you just learn how to do it and it happened to be your mom at the door and then you watched more? Why weren't you at the family party? She broke your trust, but if I were in your shoes and my husband walked into a party, handed me a letter, and walked out with my son without so much as letting me explain, my trust would be broken too. Just because you grabbed the child prematurely when there was no emergency. On another note, be very careful up. You have stated you are taking the child to go stay with you at your father's house. You have effectively removed the child from its primary residence to stay in a new residence. without the other legal custodian's permission and are detaining the child. Many family courts would view this as kidnapping. The person who chooses to leave home typically has to leave the children. Because people can and do go to jail over this. Look up parental kidnapping laws if you want further information on this. Did you seriously expect your wife to not read the note as you took your son away with no explanation? You wanted drama. Don't lie to yourself. You wanted her to embarrass herself, but in reality you look like the unreasonable one here. Did you expect your mom to stay in a marriage she wasn't happy in? Or just not be with the guy she cheated with? Either way, your mom gets to decide her own romantic life, and it doesn't mean she doesn't love you. I hate when kids try to make their parents' love lives about themselves as long as the partners aren't abusive. But your wife should have gone behind your back about your mom visiting. But you come across as a drama queen who can't communicate maturely. After reading your comments, I am gonna say YTA. You're not the off for not wanting your mom in the picture. But you are tough for everything else. My wife can't go anywhere with my son without my knowledge. I want a divorce because I want know what my wife is doing with my son 50% of the time. If I suspect anything, I will go through her phone, not to mention showing up to a family function and taking son while he's in zero danger. You 100% meant to cause a scene, and if anyone at this point is going to destroy your family, it will be you. What your wife did is wrong, but what you're doing is vindictive and controlling. If I were your wife, I'd divorce you and get full custody and then block you. If you're this controlling with your wife, I can't imagine how much worse you are with your son. You took your 5-year-old from a family gathering because you were angry at your wife's actions. You involved him in this mess. Your wife deceived you because you were adamant that you remain NC due to your mother still needs to pay for breaking up your family 15 years ago. You know she didn't agree since her mother is dead. She was not allowed to dissent from your decision. Now you have taken your son away and are staying at your dad's. Honestly, you might want to consult a lawyer in your state. Your wife might have grounds for a divorce and custody due to your actions. Your Honor, I took my child from his mother's presence and home because my mother was visiting our house with my wife's consent. Was your child at risk of harm or non-custodial kidnapping? Quote, no. My mom left our family 15 years ago and I swore I'd never have anything to do with her ever again. Was she abusive or neglectful? Quote, no. It's what I decided. My wife was not allowed to have her around. I have no idea how this would play out in court. But I don't think the judge would side with you to award 100% custody. You were totally justified up until you decided to handle this at the party. There was no immediate danger that would have required that level of immediate removal. You could have easily waited till after the party to discuss this. This is a hard one. I appreciate where you're coming from. You set clear boundaries and have had your trust broken because your wife went behind your back to do something that you clearly told her not to. That's fair. So NTA with regards to that. Your wife is a huge off for what she's done. But you didn't have to take your son at that very moment. You didn't have to give your wife the letter around so many other people. You didn't have to potentially frighten your son by having your wife cry and beg with you in front of him. I'm inferring this here. Obviously I don't know what your son thinks, but I'm imagining a scene and it doesn't sit comfortably with me. All things considered, I don't quite think YTA, but you're not far off it. So you should have picked a better moment. Boy, this is a tough one. I'm gonna have to say that's a real betrayal. With your wife secretly carrying on a relationship with your estranged mother. And she is absolutely in the wrong there. But I just feel like With the child's best interest at heart, there is almost never a reason to take them away from a parent. She betrayed you, not him. She isn't any danger to him, and is still a good parent. Even if she has wounded you, have it out with her. Scream, yell, go silent, whatever you need to do. But don't take a child from his parent. Way to scold your wife for trying to cause a scene at a party cause it's not the time or place. Even though it was totally the time and place for you to choose to make this dramatic little stunt. You aren't tough for being upset your wife went behind your back and betrayed your trust like that. Not one bit. But YTA for how you chose to conduct yourself as far as dropping that on your wife at a party. Esh. Yes, Esh. You didn't have the right to take your son from her and still don't have the right to decide that. Now. Just like she didn't have the right to go behind your back. You knew it would cause a scene but you wanted to hurt her the way she hurt you. She sucks for violating your trust. You sound insufferable. You're blaming her for how you walked in. Cryptically handed her a letter and yeeted with your son? Yeah, you wouldn't be super happy if someone did that to you. Get over yourself.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. AmITheAsshole is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.